I like to get together with my friends at youth group every week and talk to them about how their life has been and how we've been doing and getting lots of snacks.
My favorite part of youth group is hanging out with my friends.
I like playing games like My Chair, which is a game where there's one chair open and the person to the left has to slap the chair and say, "My chair," and the third person has to call out someone else's name. And there's a person in the middle that's trying to get that chair, so you have to be quick about it.
My favorite part of youth group is worship because I like to sing.
I really like eating snacks with my friends and singing worship songs.
I don't know. Why am I here?
My favorite part of youth group is leading the youth in worship and getting to see God move through them.
Probably the games, snacks, and lesson.
My favorite part of youth group is probably seeing the different personalities, the different ideas, the different gifts that all the youth have, and it's just fun to watch them grow and watch them learn and see the ways that God uses them. I really appreciate that Nathan has such a great skill for helping out with the youth, particularly in keeping order. Making sure the kids are safe, behaved when they need to be, contained, and just he takes the energy they have and he really focuses it on Jesus. I feel like every moment Nathan's around, they're definitely 100% locked in to learning and becoming deeper disciples in an orderly and straightforward manner.
My favorite youth activity is going to Karen's Lake and swimming and usually being towed by a kayak.
Church camp. I like being able to teach kids about Jesus and stuff.
My favorite youth activity would have to be either studying from Scripture or playing Foursquare, where I dominate everyone all the time.
My favorite activity is when we went to the trampoline park and ate at Steak and Shake afterwards.
I really like going to the lock-in every year. It's really fun, and sometimes I get to invite friends. At the lock-in, we play Nerf games, and we get on teams, and sometimes the teams really suck, and we lose all the time.
My favorite youth group activity is playing Foursquare before every youth group and before we really get started in things.
My favorite youth activity is the lock-in because I like the prayer time.
I liked it when we went to the lake. I ate a bunch of seaweed.
You're getting any fun? Barely any. Ready? I can do it.
Well, as most of you can hopefully tell, I'm not Devin. If you can't, well, sorry, Dad, you need new glasses. Today, as most of you are aware, is Youth Sunday, and as such, I got stuck with a sermon. I don't envy Devin at all anymore, especially considering that I was fairly nervous trying to prepare for giving this in front of the entire congregation. But you guys let Devin up here each week, so it's fine. But in reflecting and trying to figure out what in the world I could ever preach on that could A, sound remotely good, B, make it apply to everyone here, and C, somehow relate it to the youth, I was super nervous going into this, and I finished writing it yesterday because I was worried I was mess this up. And we all worry about a lot of stuff, don't we? I certainly do. I know my parents worry about what our family will think of us when Sydney and I argue, even though it's always your fault. And you do it too. I'm sure you can all remember one of those days where you were worried about what others were thinking about you, whether it be simple like looks or complex like your actions or behavior. Worry is something that a lot of us go through and struggle with, especially with insecurities that all of us go through and think that others will notice about us. That imperfection in the mirror, if I look classy enough, that team I root for, anything. Thankfully, God has a lot of insight about this. I had to look through the Bible a little bit well, not very hard to find verses on this, and I had to trim it down to just a few. But he speaks to Paul multiple times about this, especially in the first part of Galatians. For a little bit of context, Paul was writing this letter to the churches in the Roman province of Galatia as they were having a problem with false teachers claiming that all the parts of the old Jewish law must be followed in order to be saved. Many of the Christians were worried that they would be seen as unclean or unholy if they didn't follow Moses' law to the letter. Beginning in Galatians chapter 1, verse 10, am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. Now, before I continue on, think about that. Without worrying about figurative or spiritual meanings or any of that, the Bible quite literally states right there that trying to please people will stop you from following and serving Christ. Plain and simple. All right, sermon's over. I still got 3 more hours of material. We're fine. There will be an intermission at 1. Back on track, by focusing on the wants of others, we lose sight of God. Got it? Right, good. Continuing on with verse 11, Paul talks about his journey. I want you to know, brothers and sisters, that the gospel I preached is not of human origin. I did not receive it from any man, nor was I taught it. Rather, I received it by revelation from Christ. For you have heard of my previous way of life in Judaism, how I intensely persecuted the church of God and tried to destroy it. I was advancing in Judaism beyond many of my own age and among my people, and was extremely zealous for the traditions of my fathers. Now listen up for this bit. Verse 16. But when God, who set me apart from my mother's womb and called me to his grace, was pleased to reveal his Son in me so that I might preach to him among the Gentiles, my immediate response was not to consult any human being. Paul continues by saying that instead, he went along with the plan that God had laid out for him, rather than worrying about whatever anybody else thought. That's a perfect example of what we need to do when we're worrying about other people thinking of us, our past, our present, our future. And by worrying about that, we are doing a disservice to God and going against his plan. He knows that people, even in the time of the apostles, did this, and that it pushes us further from the Lord. Well, Scripture says not to do it, so just stop, right? It's not that simple. We put other people's concerns of us on pedestals all the time, so it's hard to break the cycle. However, I want to challenge you all today. It's simple and easy, so you don't have to worry about it that much. Start by stopping, and stop worrying about one small thing. Maybe it's an outfit that you worry won't match, or maybe it's your makeup, or your sports team, unless it's the Vikings. By doing this, you can start being able to take the burden of worry off of yourself. Maybe work up to bigger things too. Your finances, worried that someone might think less of you because you're too poor or too rich to be friends with them? Try that. Money isn't everything, you know, and God doesn't care about how rich or poor you are, just how good you really are. Worried that you aren't the cream of the crop at your job? Well, your job doesn't define who you are, and nobody is ever the best at any given thing. Pray about it too. Prayer, combined with this, can help start to alleviate the worry caused by the thoughts of other people. So I challenge you today to stop worrying about what all these other people think and start worrying about what God thinks. Are you being true to Jesus, or are you worrying about all of us? This sounds difficult, and I can assure you it is. But to truly be a follower of Jesus, it isn't easy. There are struggles and hardships that you must endure, and this is just one of the many to grow closer to God. It gets better when we get to the other side, though. Imagine it like this padlock. At first, it's locked, and you're locked out from God and his kingdom. You try a few random numbers. Doesn't work. Ask somebody? No. With everybody trying to give you their opinion on how to open it, it's confusing, and you don't know what to do. Only when we stop and check the instructions, either on the back of the lock or in the Bible, we can finally figure out how to unlock it. When you block out these distracting thoughts and opinions from others, it unlocks us from the shackles of humanity and sin and opens us up to God. So in the end, it doesn't matter who you are, black or white, Republican or Democrat, Colts fan, or actually it doesn't matter if you're a Vikings fan, or if you have short legs or extremely long legs. So all that matters is that we listen to God and not the noise of others. So go out and try it. We are all free to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, like it says in the Declaration of Independence. With this plan in mind, you can follow God and finally find your happiness. Now, girls, get back up there. Quickly, I don't want to stand up here for too much longer. And then I'll leave you all with one final question. It's also on the back of your bulletin. How will you better focus on what God is saying to you?